Good afternoon. I think we can start. I have a little query here. We're still missing one of the panelists, but I think we need to go on because there's an interesting panel here, which I would like to introduce in a minute. First, I would like to introduce you to this young lady there. Chiara is my co-moderator for today, and she's a young graduate training at ESA. So she's going to help me out this afternoon. But before introducing my panel, I would like to say that we're missing Christophe Venet. So if anyone knows where Christophe is, maybe wave your hand and we go and get him. He's probably going to join us later on. We have Christophe. Hello. Hurry up. You're on time. Oh, Philippe is there. So, free of grade. A big applause to Philippe Baptiste.
Sorry for the delay.
No problem, Philippe. So, this will be much more casual than the other ones, I can tell you. And to animate this with us, we have Anna Hasman. Anna Hasman is the chair of the ESA Council. Then, of course, Anna is representing many other member states of ESA, all the other ones, plus, of course, Sweden, as you are CEO of the most important organization in Sweden, the Swedish Space Organization. Walter Pelter from DLR. We have Philippe Baptiste, you already agreed, Giorgio Sacoccia, and heading all the ESA European Space Agency Director General, Joseph Aschbacher. And since they've been so nice, I have a little challenge here. Walter told me we're always starving. So here it is. Everybody, I checked before.
You know that in France we drink champagne only, huh?
And since we don't have any Dutch on the panel, so anyone who will have a Coke. And of course, Philippe, you came right on time. Here we go. So just to be serious, here we go, please. And if you want to take your jacket, please be my guest. Without due...
Good job.
Yes, please help yourself. This is going to be relaxed and nice and interactive. Chiara, it's all over you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Yes, and as Philip has already introduced me, I've just started at ESA as a YGT. I've been here for all of 2 weeks. But it is a very exciting time to start. So we have 2 months to go till the ESA Council meeting at ministerial level, the CM22. And I have now heard a lot about it. I've been slightly involved, but I have a lot of questions that I'd love to ask today. But before we do that, dear audience, I'm sure all of you have so many questions as well. So you can ask your questions. If you go onto this QR code and on Slido, you can post your questions. And we'll get back to it at the end of our session. So, dear panel, what I would love to learn today, and I have a lot of questions, is what does CM22 mean? What is going to happen? What is at stake? And Mr. Aschbacher, why are you proposing a major step for the European Space Program? And what are the next big steps to come? But maybe first, Philip, back to you for an insight of what has happened so far.
Well, we came a long way from Space 19 Plus, and Space 19 Plus was very successful. So the challenge is even bigger. So I can anticipate your answer. It's going to be tough. But it's not me here to give the answers. I would like to invite Anna to give, first of all, a sort of, what is the atmosphere in the Council? What is the spirit of the dear member states that are discussing over so many working group sessions and council? So over to you, Anna.
Thank you so much for that. I must say that in general, I mean, the theme for this conference is Space for All. And I think a lot of things has happened since we had the last minister meeting. And I mean, the interest and the need of a very good space infrastructure is bigger than ever. And also, I'm really happy to see that a lot of countries have put space as a strategic issue, or I would say something to discuss very high up in the government. And I think that is needed because space is needed in a lot of different areas. And I'm very proud to be the chair of ESA Council because for ESA, 22 member states, 1 vote for each state. And I think also that is because we all have to collaborate in these times that we are in right now. And I feel that the spirit is really good. Everyone would like to achieve a lot. We would like to do a lot, and I think it's important that Europe is united and do together all these very, very important things in a lot of different areas. So I have a good spirit, and I hope for the best. But of course, at the same time, I must say that there are also some hard times for some governments, or for as you know, with all what is happening with the war in Ukraine and things like that. So, but I think the spirit is very good.
Thank you very much, Anna. I think also what you say about the spirit being good and this importance to unite is very valuable. I would like to now welcome Mr. Josef Aschbacher to give his statement.
Statement may be a bit of an exaggeration, but first of all, thank you for having me on this, and welcome Chiara as a young graduate trainee in ESA. I used to start as a young graduate trainee in ESA, and you can go all the way. Future DGs are coming from all the way from the bottom. So I have actually put a few slides together. I don't want to bore you with slides, but just to give you a little bit of a flavor, a bit of an impression of what it means, the ministerial conference. Of course, you have heard a lot, you have seen a lot, and just to remind you of a few of the elements. Europe is excellent in space, and I really say that, despite being smaller compared to some other nations, but what Europe develops is quite unique and is really top class in many domains. I take some of the examples you see here. Independent access to space, absolutely crucial for everyone, for Europeans, but also some of our international partners, technology development, sovereignty on technology, disseminating data to the community on climate, on weather, on many other things, our applications, activities, Earth observation, navigation, telecom are extremely strong and are covering a large portion of our budgets, but also really looking into STEM education and inspiring new people. And this is certainly also at the core of what we do well and where we have a lot of activities. In fact, if you take some of the examples, take Copernicus as an example, which I think is a very good program where we do monitor the planet and disseminate data to everyone. Navigation, at the moment, the most precise signal worldwide, as you would know. In space science, a lot of science is based on data from different missions, Gaia, just to name one, which is producing the highest number of scientific publications right now. There is value in space, and there's a multiplier in space. Of course, when ministers ask me, you are proposing these projects, they are important, they all make perfect sense, it's a lot of money. How can you convince me that this money is well invested? And what is, of course, a very important statement or numerical figure is how many times you multiply your investment. And of course, we have done studies with external independent agencies, consultants who look into these type of things. I'm certainly not an expert in the economic return of investments, but they tell us, and we have different figures for different domains, on average, the return of €1 invested in space is about €5. And you see here 53 billion, which is the economic benefit of Europe through the space investments, knowing that the overall public investment in space is about 10 billion. So if you invest 10 billion, get 53 billion as return to the economy, that is a factor of 1 to 5. But we have also some domains where it's going even higher, especially those that are closer to the commercial sector, and they're doing very well. But also, of course, we are supporting literally 1 million jobs in Europe. They are highly qualified jobs across the board in all the different countries. And we are now cultivating a completely new domain of startups, of new businesses through a number of activities. Commercialization is a top priority. of ESA, as you know, and there we are. I've just signed, since I became DG of ESA, 17 agreements with venture capital companies or funding entities to make sure that the access to funding for young companies, young startups can be enabled. Of course, us providing the technical part, the funding agencies, the financial part, and through a number of activities, we are really ensuring that this connection can be made. Of course, this is all work in progress. You see here a slide summarizing Agenda 2025. Many of you know about Agenda 25. For those who don't, this was the strategy that with member states was elaborated a bit more than a year ago. And when I became DG on the 1st of March last year, on the first day, it was put on the table as the new way of where Europe is going, is collectively going. And this, as I repeat, is not my strategy, it's the strategy of our member states, of course, put together by ESA, by myself and my team. But this is really a European strategy of investment. You see here the priorities. You will not be surprised to see that a very strong cooperation with the European Union and the European Commission is paramount for Europe to really move forward. And we have done many individual steps already, and we keep working hand in hand together with the Commission on many individual activities. Commercialization doesn't need to be explained. You know what's happening. Safety and security, this was written more than a year ago. Today, even more valid than ever, that this is something where space will play crucial roles in order to move Europe forward. Program challenges are activities like Ariane launcher, like Vega launcher. We just had a successful launch of Vega C. Ariane 6, as you know, being brought to the launch pad. There will be soon some messages to the press coming where we stand and what the status is. Not dwelling too much on it. Also secure connectivity being another program challenge we need to build up together. And last but not least, ESA transformation. I want to make sure that ESA as an agency is fit for the future, is dynamic, is responding, is faster, is more agile. And this is something I do together with my member states. I'm discussing it with Anna quite frequently, but something that is extremely important, that we are responding to the commercialization and the revolution that is ongoing right now. I mentioned that we are good in some domains. We may need to catch up in some others. We know this very well, and this is also at the heart of our ministerial to make sure that we have a robust space infrastructure across Europe. The ambition for 2035, and that is at the horizon of the Agenda 25, is really to see where we want to develop. I keep this very short because you have heard this and you're part of this ambition. But we really believe that space is so essential for civilization, for our citizens, because it enables a certain living standard, but it also creates economic growth. It is a sector that is actually expanding quite significantly. The capacity is there in Europe, but we hear it all the time that the excellence of space infrastructure, of engineers, of scientists is top. And we do believe that Europe should be on this top right corner here, close to some other key space nations. Not because we want to be there, because space simply is necessary for our society and for our countries. And this in one slide, you've seen it before. Also at the heads of agency panel, I don't want to dwell too much on it. Few keywords that characterize our ministerial package. Of course, world-class science being always a driving force. Boosting technology innovation, technological development being at the very core of ESA. This we have done since 50 years and we keep doing that. And certainly the ministerial package has this as a focus. But also the commercial sector needs a boost, needs unlocking. And as you all know, public and private entities hand in hand need to do this together. Public investments are needed to really unlock the potential of the commercial sector in order to have sustainability on Earth and in space, and you know what that means, from climate to space debris and other related issues, reinforcing autonomy and sovereignty of space, and I think you're also very well familiar with what is meant by that, especially these days, and inspiring the next generation obviously is always one of the important elements that is at the core of our ministerial package. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you very much for that. Setting the stage for this discussion, I would like, before we get into the clear questions, a little spirit check with our three member states here. Walter, maybe you give us your temperature in Germany.
Yeah. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you for having me. And I think ESA provided or proved that they are really listening to their member states. This morning we discussed gin tonic. Now there's beer already over here. So that was really quick, agile, and fast. Yeah, the temperature or the mood in Germany, well, we are facing a situation which is kind of unique. Not because we are in a crisis situation, because it was mentioned this morning that there's a crisis. We had a pandemic situation before, and before that, actually, we had a finance crisis. It's in 2009 we had a big issue, and so from this point of view, actually, when we are running into a ministerial conference, we are always in some kind of crisis. Nevertheless, this time it's a completely different one. Because we have a crisis which is actually not just ongoing. It's a crisis which faces our politicians and decision maker every day with a complete new situation. And this is actually the kind of unique. And this is the challenge in the preparation for the ministerial conference, because this time we really have to think about, on the one hand side, how to handle the tough situation for actually the society they're running into, how to tackle that. On the other hand, actually, to know that the money they can use to mitigate the effect of the crisis, space is now asking to invest for the future. And actually, this is a good investment. And for us, it's the challenge to convince the decision maker that, yes, you can, on the one hand side, mitigate the current effect, but we are facing the situation because we do not have resources. We do not have gas and all these energy supplies. So what our standard of living is based on brain, on technology, on advantage, on being the first in place. And so we have to invest to be the first in technology, the first in science in the future. And this means we have to invest in space. And this is a tough discussion, and this is also a tough decision, because it's, from a political point of view, it's a kind of a lose-lose position. And this is always a difficult situation. So we are actually in a tough situation. Nevertheless, we work on this topic, and our decision makers are aware about this situation. And we look forward to this discussion based on an excellent program ESA and Joseph actually showed right now, that we get the convincing power that we will have a very successful ministerial at the end of the day, which puts us in the position that we can go forward, that we will be in the forefront of spacefaring nations, and that we jointly together can actually put very important missions like the lunar lander, which will be the first time that Europe goes to the surface of the moon, that this will be put into practice, just to name one of the tons of the interesting missions.
Philippe, the spirit of your Prime Minister this morning was speaking by itself. Are you also optimistic for this ministerial? What is the spirit in France beyond hosting today?
The tradition is that you don't speak after the Prime Minister. So no, but basically, I mean, it was very clear this morning. I mean, the ambition is now clear and set for the next 3 years. It was said this morning that the total budget dedicated to space for France will increase of something like 25%. It will reach 9 billion over the next 3 years. So it's something which is very important, and which clearly shows that we believe that space is key for the future, and that we are ready to invest on the topic. So these 9 billion we are talking about, I mean, of course, inside you have national programs ranging from defense, but also bilateral collaboration between CNES and NASA, or CNES or JAXA, or direct collaboration, for instance, between DLR or between CNES and ASI, and so there are many different things. And on top of this ambition, which is very strong, I think that this morning there was also a clear request from the Prime Minister for us to work with the different ministers to decide how we're going to spend these 9 billion. So topic by topic, I mean, the question is how do we maximize the value of this investment? So either through ESA or through national programs or through direct contribution to EU programs or whatever. I mean, there are different tools that are available and that we can use. And this is the topic on which we're going to work, that we have been preparing, of course, already, but over the next few weeks ahead of the ministerial. And I think that we will come with a proposition of contribution with the French budget, which is really based on a very rational analysis of the value of the investment we are making. We know the total amount. We don't know exactly now how we're gonna fraction it.
Giorgio, I've seen several ministerial, but this one, I felt Italy is particularly pushing and interested and happy to increase the speed, increase the investment in space. Is it just a feeling, or is it
that's true? That's interesting. Passing me your source of information. I will use it for sure. No, let me say, I was just listening to the previous comment, and before talking about Italy, I would like to make a consideration about Europe. I mean, it is true, it is a moment of crisis, the one we are experiencing, but it is also true that for a mature democracy like the one we have in Europe, when there is a crisis, is exactly the moment to invest in the future. And space is equal to future. So if we don't invest in space activities today that we are in a situation of crisis, we will not serve the preparation of our future. And I think this is an argument that we all should use in talking about trying to get also the resources for the ministerial. Talking about Italy, in the last 2-3 years, the interest and support to space in Italy has grown a lot. Our resources, our budget has increased almost threefold for national activities, for ESA activities at the previous ministerial, and now, of course, we are approaching the new one. It's true we are also changing government, we have election coming soon, but I've seen already a situation like that in the previous ministerial. It was not election, was change of government just before the ministerial, and the support remained from the previous to the next government, and then also on other changes that happen afterwards. It is clear that space is a solid and, how can I say, multi-partisan interest. Because, as I said before, prepare the future, and serve the citizens. So it's something that is also easy for, I believe, the political system to explain and defend. So that's my expectation. Of course, because of the approaching change, what we have done at ASI level was to accelerate, say, the preparation of all the right documents, all the right information, and possibly also to, together with the current government, to prepare all is necessary to be passed to the next one in order to avoid a gap and I mean, to maintain a seamless support. So, for what I can say from our side, we are ready, but of course I need some extra weeks of preparation that we will do, of course, together with ESA. Good.
Well, thank you very much for these statements, and also looking out to the future. Our next step for our lovely session is actually going to be a few questions that we have prepared for each of you. So I would like to direct my first question at Mr. Josef Aschbacher, because, of course, all the gears are in motion for CM22. What is new in this coming ministerial versus the Space 19+1 3 years ago?
Yeah. So what is new? A lot is new. I think we have already heard that we have just gone through a COVID crisis. We have a war in front of our doors, and we have an inflation that is high. So one might say it's all a disaster. It's all very difficult. We should run away, close ourselves somewhere in a dark room, and cry all day long. And this is what we probably could do, seeing and hearing the bad news. And it is pretty severe, and it's pretty sad what we do here. And please do not misunderstand my my statement, and this is certainly something that we take extremely serious. But I'm saying because times are challenging, because it is so difficult, we need to make sure that our society is protected, that we maintain a living standard, which is of which space is a very important element of it. I don't need to mention all the infrastructure that sustains our living standard, our life, from navigation to telecommunication to Earth observation, weather forecasts, agriculture, disaster management, security. I mean, there are many domains where you couldn't simply work without space infrastructure. But because we're in a crisis, we need to make sure that we are protecting ourselves well, but also that we come out of this crisis stronger and with a clear way forward of how we do that. And always, if you're in crisis, innovation is key. Innovation helps you getting out of crisis, and space is a perfect example where innovation brings new solutions, and this is certainly what we are having at the core of our ministerial proposal. And I also believe that this is something where Europe has to stick together, and we do that within Europe, but also with our colleagues across the Atlantic, that we see unity and the strength which probably we haven't seen until a couple of months ago, as strong as it is today, because we are faced with a severe crisis that really affects all our people. And I really believe that this sticking together also means investing in common projects, in common activities, in resilience of the space infrastructure, in a robustness of a space infrastructure, and the ministerial proposal is offering exactly that, which we do. And therefore, I think, needless to say that these investments are good investments, not only in economic senses, as I've explained before, but also really to come out of this crisis stronger with new projects, new ideas, and a new way forward.
Walter, we have 2 months to go. What is top one priority in Germany? And what is going to be the biggest challenge you're going to face in the next 2 months to convince your government to go where you would like Germany to go?
Top one priority is something Joseph just mentioned, not directly, but he underlined something. That we stick together, that we work together. And even if I do not know where we end up with our budget, what I'm positive about is that having the budget, the total budget of Germany in mind, the vast majority will go to the international cooperation within ESA, because this is probably the most important topic we have to show right now. So I'm not quite sure whether we can fill in to support all the projects we want to have. But in a situation like that, we figured out that actually, now I have to come back to the crisis situation, that it was expected that we do not stick together, that we as Europe do not work together. And I think the strong signal and the strong message we sent to Putin and to Moscow was that we actually stick together, that we work together. And from our point of view, Germany's top priority is to a strong ESA, where we work together with our international partners, with our European partners, to actually put missions into practice we are not capable to do alone. This is what we do within the European Union, but this is also what we do within ESA. And this is top priority. And it's also top priority that we now actually facing a situation where we have actually ties to our US partners, to NASA, where we, for the first time in history, NASA relies in a mission when they returns, when the humankind returns to the moon, that they rely on mission critical parts not coming from US soils. It's first time in history. So we go, it's not just a saying we go together, it's really true. We go together, they rely on us, and this is also something we do through ESA. And so top priority for us will be showing that ESA is strong, and this is how we, as Germany, not knowing how we end up with our budget. So cross the fingers that's going to be better. But I can tell you that we will stay with the vast majority of our budget dedicated to ESA. This is actually the priority number one. And actually the biggest task I mentioned already is to convince our decision makers that investing in our future, investing in our brain, investing in inspiring the next generation of people who are going to sort out the issues we have actually left over for them when we retire, that this is a pretty good idea.
Thank you very much for that answer. My next question actually goes to Mr. Philippe Baptiste. So under French EU presidency, you organized the Space Summit together with ESA. What is the concrete link between the Space Summit from February 2022 and the CM22?
I think that there was a clear ambition which was stated during this summit on the fact that Europe wanted to invest in space. There was a clear ambition which was basically at the same time provided by the ESA member state, but also by the European Commission, which was also there. Very strong statements on the question of SSA and STM. Also, some important points related, of course, to the security constellation, which will be deployed by the European Commission, and with which the ESA we will see during the ministerial, but I hope that we will manage to come with an important contribution of ESA for this secure connectivity constellation. On top of that, I would just like to come back to the exploration issue, because I think that there is something which is important that has been mentioned during this Space Summit. Of course, Europe has always had some very strong collaboration with the US for sending astronauts in space. In France, we also had many collaboration before with our Soviet partners at this time, and many astronauts flew with them. The question that we have today, I think, is an important question, and it's really a political question that we have to solve. I'm not sure that we will solve it before the next ministerial. It will take time, but the question is, what kind of place do we want for Europe in this human flight programs? Do we want to stay partners, the junior partners, as we are today with our American friends? And this could be an answer. Or we could perhaps want to have some increased participation and some kind of also of autonomy for this kind of thing. I think that access to space used to be a key enabler for space nations. If you wanted to be a space nation or a space continent, you needed to have this space access. I think that still today we need it, but on top of that, very soon, the question of access to of human flight, capacity to send astronauts in low Earth orbit, or perhaps tomorrow to the moon, will also be a key issue for political powers that want to play in space. So that's also a question that has been mentioned during the Space Summit. And basically, there is a group, but I'm sure that Joseph can tell a little bit more about that. That has been set up. It was supposed to give some feedback before the next ministerial. It will be perhaps a little bit later, but that will really feed the reflection on this question.
Anna, this summit was organized on the 16th of February, 8 days after there was a war over close to us, close to Europe. The word that was on the lips of everyone was ambition on the 16th of February at the summit. We wanted to go high. We want Europe to go and fly high. What did that 24th of February change? What was actually happening to Europe and to what we have to face now in November and the consequence of that? Could you elaborate on that, please?
I think it's different things. I think what is also Walter mentioned before, that I think Europe actually become even more united than before, because we really understand we have to be united. But one other thing is, I think, you know, we also talked about that we need to all make our decision makers to understand why space infrastructure is so important. Because why are we doing this? It's of course fun, and exciting to have new innovations, fantastic launches and things like that. But the main thing behind this is really that we are going to help benefit the society with a lot of different, very important things, like transparency, like for security, a lot of different things, and I think what the war in Ukraine really did was that the people in general get more interested and get more understanding about the need of space. Just see this picture, the photographs that are from Ukraine. You can really understand why is it so important to have this very important infrastructure in space. So I think, in general, it was not good, of course, to have a war in Ukraine. It's a disaster. But there are some good things with it, and that is one of them. But I think we are more united, and I think we are even more decisive that we need to use space for what is good with it.
Is space going to be more used for military than before?
Yes, of sure. And here also I think it's extremely important to find a good balance between the civilian part, what we need, the data we need there, and also for the security part. And I really hope that they can find a good way to collaborate in a constructive way. So it's an arena for both.
Joseph, ambition is still there?
The ambition is certainly there. I think, as we said before, now more than ever. But let me just put the figures a bit in context, because sometimes people think it is a bit ambitious, literally. The proposal which we are discussing right now is some 25% above the one of 2019. But if you look at the budgets, say, in the United States, in the public sector, and I'm talking here only of NASA, not the Space Force, they are increasing, depending a bit on the year, between 7% and 8% per year. If you take 3 years, you are 20–25%. So in other words, our proposal of a 25% increase is more or less keeping pace with what happens, of course, in America being our big example. I do not know the figures in China, but seeing the output of the public investments in China, it's tremendous. And my gut feeling is that the increase there is even much higher. I'm also not talking of the commercial sector, where the increase is much faster, much steeper. And again, if you want to stimulate the commercial market, of course, this is done with the help of the public sector in order to enable the commercial sector to really flourish and come with new projects, new ideas, not to do what the commercial sector is doing, the opposite, to help them doing commercial projects and, of course, public sector stepping back where they can offer better solutions. So all this you have to see a bit in context, and I think, therefore, the word ambition may be sounding a bit negative, because what I think we are aiming at doing is just making sure that we are not thrown out of the race. I literally mean it that way, so that we keep pace with what happens around us. And Europe is not an island. Europe is a very important economic power if you put all the countries together. And I think Europe wants to be a leading technology continent, and space is one good example of how this can be shown.
Well, speaking of race and competition, I think we are all quite aware that that launch is very highly competitive. And Mr. Aschbach, as you've mentioned, we've just seen the very successful launch of the Vega C. So my question to Mr. Giorgio Saccocia is, how important is the Vega C inaugural launch in context of European launchers?
I think with Joseph, Walter, Philip, we spend a large part of our time discussing about the launcher and the future of launcher in Europe. It is extremely important, of course. And I believe that to be effective in preparing the future of launchers is something that, I mean, certainly something we cannot improvise. First, we have to start on solid basis, which we have in Europe. A result like the one you just mentioned of Vega C, or the recent inaugural launch of Vega C, is extremely reassuring of the capability that we have in Europe to produce the key technologies that will serve future access to space. I mean, this is liquid propulsion, liquid propellant. Vega C is using solid propulsion, but was capable, with respect to Vega, to increase its performance from from, I think it was 1,500 kilograms in sun synchronous 700 kilometers to 2.2, 2.3. Can deliver up to more than 3 tons in low Earth orbit. But the key thing, which I think is really what will be the success in the future, is the flexibility of a machine like that, because it's a launcher that is capable to deliver payload from the very small CubeSat up to 500 kilograms, grouped into tens of satellites being delivered together in different orbits. This is the, I insist, is the key for the future, because access to space today to serve the economy, the new economy of space, means offering opportunities from the very small, I mean, from the startup, from very small, small and medium enterprise that is conceiving a new product, to the very large companies that has the need, like we've seen recently, to deliver satellite like James Webb Telescope. And this is what in Europe we have to really look at to be capable in next year. First of all, to provide our independent access to space that a continent like Europe cannot afford not to have. And then to make sure that we can also be competitive on a commercial basis with a competition which is growing every day basis, basically outside Europe. So that's what we are trying to do, and I'm sure this, what we will do at this ministerial will provide an important input to that.
So, Chiara, while you're looking at the Slido questions from the audience, I'd like to
By the way, don't forget to ask your questions.
Yeah, please ask your questions. Still have a few minutes. We have 13 minutes left. I'd like to get back to Philippe on that question about Ukraine consequences and also the climate, the environment we're living through. France Relance 2030 is something which was behind the French presidency, and the impulsion that you like to give to the startup is the spirit, looking at the economy and the strangling economy that we have with the small, medium companies. Is this changed in the space sector? Is the new space still ready to go with the maximum chances?
Thank you. So before answering the question, I cannot not say a word on launchers, because you know that there is some kind of love story between France and launchers. Love and hate. No, but I mean, so we have always invested a lot on launchers. This is something which we believe is absolutely fundamental, because there is no European strategy in space if you don't have a European access to space. To get a European access to space, you need a base. You need a base which is up to date, and so this is very important that we are able to invest in the base in Kourou, so the European space base. And on top of that, of course, you need launcher. And we are in a difficult position in Europe today, because for two reasons. The first one is that we were relying on the Soyuz launchers for 10 years. We have been using Soyuz launchers launched from Kourou. And on top of that, we are in a transition phase between Ariane 5 and Ariane 6. So our top priority is very clear. It's to make Ariane 6 work, to launch it soon, and not only to launch it soon, but to have also a steep ramp up to be able to match the needs that we have today in Europe to launch. So I just wanted to remind that, because this is really something which is absolutely fundamental for France. Now, coming back to new space, I think that we all know that there is a new paradigm. It's very true that for a long time, I was asking my colleagues in CNES, I mean, how many startups would you see any year? And the answer was, a few years ago, we would see 2 or 3 new startups in the space business coming to us. Today, we have one in France only, so you have to figure out in Europe. In France only, we have 1 new startup coming to us every week on this business. So, I mean, this is just a deep change. It does not mean we have also to be cautious with that. I'm really deeply convinced that they can really change the world of space, especially on the downstream business and on some satellites. It's very, very clear. It's less clear on when you have huge industrial projects and where you have huge investment to make. I'm not sure that a startup can do a heavy launcher within two years. That's not the case. It will take time, and it's also true for some big satellites. So of course, the landscape is changing, but we really believe in the fact that, yes, there is a huge change, and this is the reason why we have decided to invest a lot in it. And as you have mentioned, France 2030, which is one investment plan from the government, is really a large amount of it. Part of it, at least, or half of it, at least, will be dedicated to startup and to these newcomers.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Chiara, questions on Slido?
Yes, on the topic of investing, we have a question here that is Europe investing enough in future space technology to remain at the forefront in constellations, launcher reusability, nuclear quantum components, etc.?
Answer, Joseph, maybe?
Is Europe investing enough? I would say if the ministerial package is subscribed at good level, I think that's an adequate response to what happens outside.
Walter?
Yes, this was a politically correct answer. This answer to one of the heads of the space agencies, it's in our nature to say no. Of course not. We have to invest more.
The sky is the limit, also on investment.
Chiara, another question.
Yes, there's a lot of questions coming in. So I'm just going with a question from Ben Sisko, who's wondering about the perception of ESA's role in the near future. So this is probably a question for you, Mr. Aschbacher. So how can the agency leverage best the stress put on it by 22 plus national priorities?
That is very stressful, I can confirm. Now, how does it work? Actually, it may sound an impossible job, but we have done it for almost 50 years now, I think quite successfully. Because if you look really at the track record of what ESA was putting together in terms of packages for ministerial programs, satellites, launcher programs, I think the record speaks for itself, and I can just recall some of these milestones, but all of you know them. I think this is really the strength of putting all this together. Yes, it is a challenge to make sure, because these are optional programs. Optional programs mean the country can put zero or a lot into a program. Therefore, they need to be very attractive to satisfy really the needs of big member states, small member states, northern, southern, western, eastern, and so on and so forth. So you can imagine that this is a daily job which is keeping us busy, making sure that these various priorities are put together. But I think it is fair to say, but I shouldn't say that, but I hear this from my member states, that the package, as it is at the moment discussed, overall is solid, robust, and I think quite attractive. But this is really for member states to say.
I think you forgot to say you have a fantastic council and a fantastic chair of council that helps you in the job.
Yes, I'd like to comment there and say that we have to remember also that ESA is not stronger than the weakest link. So therefore, I think it's so important that we really try to get all the member states working together in the right direction. I think, and we are doing a quite good job there.
Walter, going from €5 per European citizens per year to €6, is that something feasible?
Yeah, of course, it's feasible. It's the question of priorities, and the question whether is €6 enough is also. We can invest a lot of money in a very good way, and so it's not the question €5 or €6 or €7 or €8. We have to come up with a very good program, put this into practice in short time, sensible way together, and actually strengthen our cooperation within ESA and within ESA with other member states to actually make sure that we achieve our objectives. This is actually what counts. That we achieve our objectives. Does not have to do with 6 or 8 or €10. This is what I'm not able to evaluate. What I can tell you, of course, it should be in the nature of a head of a space agency that it's not enough. If some head of space agency says that he has enough money, then he has tons of money, or he should be fired. And other than that, we have to make the best out of the money available.
Thank you. Chiara.
We have another question here which links maybe a bit back to also military and defense use of space. So the question is, the distinction between civil and defense space assets and applications is becoming increasingly blurry. What is ESA's position on these dual developments?
Joseph.
Yes.
Yes.
Maybe you should ask for once the head of the ESA Council. But no, you wanted to answer? No, but let me put it in simple words. ESA as an organization and me as DG of ESA, I'm at the service of member states. So I will implement what the member states want me to do. We have always done this, and I will keep doing that. And of course, on strategic questions like security, this is really a decision of member states. We are discussing it, and maybe that is where the moment where Anna wants to chip in. We're discussing it, but this is certainly a discussion that needs to take place at the level of member states. It's a political discussion as much as a technical discussion, but we will, of course, make sure that we find a good way forward. I think hand over to Anna at this point.
I just would like to say that if you have an infrastructure, could whatever it is, now we have the space, it could use a dual use. Almost everything is more or less dual use. And I think, as you said, we have to continue in these discussions. And of course, ESA is not a military organization, will never be. It's a civilian organization. But of course, there could be some gray zones that we have to handle and discuss in a very constructive way.
Philippe.
No, I just wanted to remind exactly that. I mean, defense programs are not run through ESA. We have defense programs that we run through our own channels. But of course, as it was mentioned within the question, there are some civil data that are very useful for defense program, and there are also defense data coming from space that can be used for civil applications. So of course the question is always on the table, but there is no simple answer. I think that at least from France's point of view, it's very clear that ESA is not a defense agency. It's very clear, but the question sometimes is blurred.
If I may add something, I mean, maybe the question is also wrongly posed because what separates at the end is how the service is provided to the civil or to the defense side of the end users. But the source of the data, which is the very source of data, which are the technologies that produce the data, these are in common. And certainly what ESA can do, as much as development which are done at national level, is to develop the right technologies that eventually will form the part of specific satellites. Can also be dual. We have experience in Italy of having satellites for Earth observation which are dual use. And they can perfectly work together with the right separation, with the right data policy, and of course all the security you have to put into that. But certainly ESA has a key role in innovating the technologies that eventually can be used by both worlds.
Thank you. Looking at the time, we're going to take one more question, and then we're going to wrap up this session.
We have one more question concerning the CM22, which might be nice for each panelist to give a quick answer, which is, what will be the major challenge during the CM22 meetings?
Well, we have to manage to complete the existing programs that have already been launched over the previous semin, and I'm not talking, of course, only on launchers. Scientific programs, of course. I mean, several scientific programs have been launched already. We need to invest in these programs. There are overcosts and things like that. So we need to complete this program, and at the same time, we want to invest in the future and start new programs. So I think this is, of course, the challenge we are all facing.
The major challenge might be to have a few minutes of sleep in the night between the 2 days, but we earn our salary, so we are ready to dedicate the full night if necessary, but we will succeed.
But I think the big challenge is really to, at the end, get all the entities, all the member states going in the same direction and really say this is important for ESA and this program is important. And then, of course, it's the already existing program that we have to fulfill, but also new initiatives.
I answer last.
Yeah, from my point of view, and I think this is already mentioned partly, is that we are facing with pressing issues and that we find enough time to do also the important issues, that we are not always spend all the time and all the money on the pressing issues, that we also find some time and some money for the important ones.
10 seconds.
10 seconds, no. What is important, what is a measure of success? A measure of success is, and I'm not talking of money here, that the member states, when they come to the table at ministerial level, that they are satisfied at the end of the day and they think they've done the right thing, the right decisions, and go home smiling and with a good feeling that they have really brought Europe forward, because what they have invested in is for their people, is for their citizens, and for the future of Europe. And if people have this feeling on the way home, I think that is a huge success.
Fantastic. This is the way I want to hear about Europe. I think we should give a round of applause to this wonderful panel. Thank you very much. Thank you for your participation. You fully deserve your drink. It's happy hour, so take it with you. And thanks very much for your participation. Looking forward, after the ministerial, to debrief about the results.